Do you think that Megyn Kelly was being a professional child when she made this argument to defend Donald Trump?
As for Epstein, I've said this before, but just as a reminder, I do know somebody very, very close to this case who is in a position to know virtually everything. Not everything, but virtually everything. And this person has told me from the start, years and years ago, that Jeffrey Epstein, in this person's view, was not a pedophile. This is this person's view, who was there for a lot of this, but that he was into the barely legal type. Like he liked 15-year-old girls.
You know, barely legal. Like 15, you know.
And I realize this is disgusting. I'm definitely not trying to make an excuse for this. I'm just giving you facts.
I'm not making an excuse. He just liked barely legal girls. You know, 15.
That he wasn't into like 8-year-olds, but he liked the very young teen types that could pass for even younger than they were, but would look legal to a passerby.
15-year-old girls. This is, you know that chart that said diversity of opinion is actually much greater on the right than it is on the left? This is the conversations they're having that we're missing out on, you know? Maybe people would take the left more seriously, politically and ideologically, if we were willing to get into the trenches with these kinds of, like, free speech, free-for-alls, you know?
And that is what I believed, and that was what I reliably was told for many years. And it wasn't until we heard from Pam Bondi that they had tens of thousands of videos of alleged, forgive me, they used to call it kiddie porn. Now they call it child sexual abuse material.
Why would you say that? Sorry, in my industry, we used to call it this. It was before woke. We all got, you know, I don't even want to say it.
On his computer, that for the first time I thought, oh no, he was an actual pedophile. I mean, only a pedophile gets off on young children abuse videos. She's never clarified it. I don't know whether,
as opposed to, you know, the barely legal girls, you know, 15.
it's true. I have to be honest. I don't really trust Pam Bondi's word on the Epstein matters anymore. Yeah, so I don't know what's true about him, but we have yet to see anybody come forward and say, I was I was under 10. I was under 14 when I first came within his purview.
No, they were all just, you know, barely legal.
Look, you can say that's a distinction without a difference.
No, it's not.
I think there is a.
We've touched on a very serious topic today. You're right. People are simplifying this. Are you familiar with the term ephebophilia?
Difference. Yeah. There's a difference between a 15-year-old and a 5-year-old. Yeah. You know, it's just.
Now, I'm not defending him. However, I'm really insistent on this point because it implicates our president. You know, because so far, nobody has files of Donald Trump with a 5-year-old. As long as he's not caught with a 5-year-old, need the GOP to make this their official line. That's true. Do you think we could get like Carolyn Levitt to play this during a press briefing? So she said she was 15, getting really confused and flustered as you're trying to explain to the fleet of FBI agents who have just landed on Little St. James. Jesus Christ. Holy moly, this is the bad place. She's on TV. She's literally one of the like premier conservative broadcasters. Yeah. It's Megyn Kelly. She's a celebrity. She's huge. I don't know, man. Conversations like this. Young people don't remember when Megyn was on Fox News. Wasn't she literally abused herself? Am I thinking of a different Fox News host? Yes? Okay, yeah, okay. I mean, not that it ever matters. But trans people are groomers. Trans people better thank their lucky stars that the political actors most committed to framing them as groomers are all pedophiles, you know? It definitely frees them up a little bit rhetorically. Roger Ailes, yeah. Okay, I remember now. Yeah. Literally all projection. Yeah, I think to a large extent. I really do think a lot of conservatives don't understand why you would ever want to, like, bond with, and by bond, I mean any, like a teacher to a student or whatever, unless it was sexual, you know? Yeah, every accusation is a confession. They don't comprehend it. It's all just, like, barely disguised power dynamics to them. I can't believe she said this. Genuinely. This conversation reminded me of this clip. Oh my God, I had a flashback as soon as I saw this shit, dude. The response video. Yeah, where she traced Danganronpa sprites to draw her her Rantsona.
Now I'm going to give you terms that I could be classified under: pedophile, hebephile, and ephebophile. Huh? You didn't know about these terms?
Interesting choice for Megyn Kelly stylistically to run this on her show, but, you know, interesting stuff. Remember when Megyn got mad at Sports Illustrated because a trans woman was on the front cover of their swimsuit edition, and her argument is that 15-year-old boys should jack off to women like her? You know, no, I don't remember that, but that is less appalling than what she said here, so I believe you. Yeah, you covered that? Okay, all right, I believe you. I believe you. I believe you completely. Yeah, thank you for the link, by the way. By the way, like, all this Epstein stuff is playing out really... I know people like to be defeatist about this, like, oh, nothing will sink Trump. Look, there is no magical threshold in America where the president becomes so unpopular that they instantly combust, you know? That's not a real thing. However, their popularity correlates pretty strongly with how much they're able to get done while they're in office, you know? It's really, 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 really difficult to, say, for example, destroy American democracy if you're not offering people a convincing alternative. Remember that Hitler had to offer people a convincing alternative. A lot of effort was expended on his part and the part of the Nazi party to try to convince Germans that what he was offering was better than the current status quo. He was wrong, he lied, but he did put effort into it. The Trump administration has been putting effort into it. I have to say, they've been doing a pretty bad job. His popularity on the Epstein stuff has been sinking, like, very rapidly. We'll talk about this a little bit more in the near future, but it seems like the winds are a-blowing, and more Republicans are indicating that they're willing to vote for the release of the Epstein files next week. So, again, we'll get to that.
When you talk to you hear from the victims, it is very clear what they want. They've made that clear again and again. What does the American public think about how Donald Trump has been handling the Epstein files compared to all the other issues that he brought up during the campaign?
Yeah, you know, Donald Trump is underwater on basically every single issue he ran on in 2024. But the Epstein files, the Epstein case, are especially dreadful for him. What are we talking about here? Well, let's take a look at Trump's Senate approval rating on the issue. Look, they're all in red. They're all in the negative territory. But on immigration, you know, he's 5 points underwater. Foreign policy, 8 points. Trade and tariffs, he's 17 points. The economy, 18 points. But look at the Epstein case. He is 39 points below water on the Epstein case. His net approval is 39 points in the negative. My goodness.
He actually has significant negative approval with Republicans on the Epstein case. Nobody likes it. Nobody likes it.
Gracious. What Donald Trump has been selling on the Epstein files, the Epstein case, the American people, simply put, have not been buying at all, Sarah.
And keep in mind, this polling data would have been taken from before the most recent drop. There's no way they would have accurate polling data from right now, you know? Like, it's only going to go down from here.
Seidner.
All right, so is there any sign that things have gotten better since there have been some things that have been released?
Yeah, okay.
Although released by Democrats.
There have been some things that have been released. Donald Trump has been trying to make some sort of case saying that, you know, the folks don't necessarily care about it. But take a look here. Approve of the Trump admin on the Epstein case in early July, right, when you had those DOJ droppings, right? It was 17%. Look at where we were by late September, the latest poll I can find it. 20%. You know, we often talk about Donald Trump having this floor, right, of at about 40%. On this particular issue, he is less than half the level of the supposed floor. There's just nobody. There is just nobody in the electorate who is buying this. They do not like the way that the Trump administration has been handling this case one iota.
You have to let this be a lesson, too, especially for Democrats, you know, on the nature of how politics works these days. People want main characters, people want energy, people want hype, people want aura, people want momentum. It doesn't matter what the actual political outcomes are for a person like Trump. You could damage the country as much as you want. His base will not care. They'll bear any amount of suffering or indignity if they feel like they're winning. People vote on their feelings, you know. The problem is that on this particular issue, on the Epstein case, there's no way to take Trump's position and come across like the main character who's aura farming, you know? There's nothing epic and hype about being a pedophile trying to cover yourself up. It's just there's no way on you can't even vice signal about it, because in this case, on every other issue they'll vice signal, right? Kristi Noem will go out there and talk about how we're getting rid of 20 billion illegals or whatever. You can vice signal on a bunch of issues. Vice signaling on this one would be Donald Trump going up to the stage and saying, yeah, he likes touching little girls. And that's not, it would be an interesting play to follow through on that one. But he can't do it. He can't do it. So okay, but guys, you understand I'm not joking, right? That would be the equivalent, He vice signals on the economy. He vice signals on immigration. He vice signals on racism, on sexism. Every time an issue comes up, right? That's the bit from the administration. Yeah, you think we're bad, we're going to be twice as bad. You can't do it here. You can't do it here. So they've lost out on their one tool for like reframing, recontextualization. Oh, you thought a bad thing was bad? Actually, a bad thing is good because it's based. Can't do that here.
Republicans have generally said they like what Donald Trump is doing, generally speaking. How do they feel about the Epstein case?
Okay, so you see, approve of Trump on the Epstein case. This is overall, right? And you see 17%, you say 20%. That is way below the 40% floor that Donald Trump supposedly has. How does that possibly happen? It's because of Republicans. Because look at this number. Okay, Republicans who approve of Trump's job as president, 87%. That is basically in line with the long-term average, 85, 90, 95%. But look at the Trump admin's job on the Epstein case. Just 45% of Republicans, less than half of Republicans are even buying what the administration is telling.
And again, this is before the most recent email drop, 20,000 emails, plus the Epstein files release, so on and so forth.
Look, we're not necessarily sure whether or not this case has moved the ball on Trump's overall approval rating yet, but I can tell you that the more...
Wasn't this also incredibly obvious before all this? No, I'm sorry. It should have been, but no. A lot of people are just in a media bubble. They never see any of this, Also, people are willing to give a lot of credit, be very charitable to candidates that they like, If you're a dedicated, diehard Fox News viewer, the only time you're hearing about the Epstein stuff is in the context of it being a hoax made up by blowhard Democrats. You're just not getting the opportunity to engage with this information at face value. But now it's being engaged with a lot more openly, a lot more aggressively. People are coming around to it. Has it been obvious this whole time? Yes. Will I ever forgive people who took this long to realize? No. No, you could have Googled it. But people are stupid, and we have to work with that.
That this case is in the news, the worse it is for Donald Trump because...
Bosh, you're forgetting a majority of MAGA are racist pedos who don't give a shit about this, unfortunately. See, this is what I would call sort of like stupidity by cynicism, You're desperate to get ahead of me on a cynical talking point, and in so doing, you have like erased nuance, Are a lot of people on the right racist pedophiles? Of course. But it doesn't change anything that I've said. And I've forgotten nothing. Don't condescend. No, a majority of Republicans are not like actual pedophiles. That would be ridiculous. And if that was the case, this country would have been over a long time ago. That's not... people are susceptible to a lot of social influences, and what people are and what people are willing to admit they are two very different things. But at the very least, within their heart of hearts, okay, to a lot of Republicans, pedophilia is something they still consider to be bad.
Simply put, it is his worst issue by far.
We could be seeing a vote on this next week. This case is not going away anytime soon.
It is not going away anytime soon, and that is bad news politically for Donald John Trump.
All right.
Donald John Trump. I want to know how long the Dems in the committee had access to these emails. Why they released now instead of 3 weeks ago? Because the House wasn't in session. They didn't have the ability to release this information.
Un clan de pedófilos quiere acabar la democracia en Colombia. Duro, sí, pero ahí está la realidad. Y para que no salga la lista, entonces nos envían acorazados a matar pescadores de esta ciudad. Y amenazar al vecino, que si dictador o no, ¿cómo que el pueblo de Colombia va a aplaudir que invadan a su hermano, que no es el presidente, sino el pueblo de Venezuela? ¿Cuándo?
More world leaders need to call Trump a pedophile. It sucks how cucked everyone is, Even Mark Carney, like you threatened to invade and annex Canada for months and months and months. And then Mark Carney's like, yeah, all right, okay, yeah, okay, that was fun. All right, like, let's move on. I don't know. Everyone's a pussy. There's really no reason to talk to the administration about anything other than Epstein at this point. You know, elephant in the room says address me. There's nothing like they're not interested in nor capable of governing. They don't believe in anything and they don't care about implementing anything. And there's no real like they don't there's nothing else that you can really ask them. What else do they care about? Just you get to ask all of them about Epstein all the time until Trump inevitably crashes out and admits he did it, you know? I've said this before, but I do really think it chuffs at Trump by quite a bit that he can't vice signal on this, you know? Like, if Trump was with his freak, you know, New York billionaire real estate buddies or, you know, with his buddies at Mar-a-Lago or whatever, of course he'll brag about kids. Why wouldn't he? They're all awful, awful people. Why wouldn't they do that, you know? And it probably bothers Trump a lot that he can't own up to it, you know, here. Like, he's been so awful about everything else sex-related, right? Grab him by the pussy, locker room talk. Jean Carroll, you know, keeps trying to, like, essentially, like, undo the legal result of his sexual assault case with Miss Carroll. There's no... his daughter, there's a million times in his life he's been able to blow this off, and this time he can't because it's just too bad, you know? It probably frustrates him that he has to, like, hide in shame over something that a lot of his contemporaries did along with him, you know? Because you know he wants to throw his arms up in the air and go, well, what the f everyone was doing it, but that wouldn't be a very convincing answer. I wonder how many people in his close circle are advising him on this. Like, it wouldn't surprise me if Donald Trump has some people around him who are like, sir, you can't talk about it. And he's like, it wasn't that bad. They'll understand. And then they're like, no, you really, like, genuinely, you have to shut the f up about this. He had an emergency meeting with his AG. Yeah, but Pam Bondi is a tepid bowl of soup. You know, Pam Bondi is a massive pussy and incompetent. She can't be his confidant. He must have some confident people. Who's the woman who was the chief of staff? She's a competent lady, very evil, very stern, like Thatcherite type. What's her name? Susie Wiles. Thank you. If I wonder if she might be one of those people. She seems like she'd be the type, you know? She's so good no one notices her. Yeah, that's what makes her dangerous. One of the few competent people in the administration. Crazy, I had to Google her. I thought Miller was chief of staff. Well, he's deputy chief of staff, but I think she was chief of staff for the previous administration, or Miller has been competent. Yeah, but Miller's not the kind of guy who would be a confidant to Trump. Not that they don't have that relationship. They don't have that relationship. I don't think Trump's going to going to resign. I don't think it's insane, though, to draw attention to the fact that J.D. Vance has been weirdly quiet lately. If there's evidence 100% proving it, what happens? Nothing. This is all about PR. It's all a PR game, okay? It's all a PR game. But trust me, that matters.